Today with me is Reifa Tangon at our Jubilee edition of the A4Q Testing Summit. So Reifa is the lead and the president of a startup in Indonesia, and she's a perfect example for our women in testing, and she can tell us a lot about the career in testing. Reifa started on the university, the Methodist University in North Carolina, and she had then a career in Indonesia in the testing field. Welcome, Reifa, to our Women in Testing talk here today.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Werner. Thank you for inviting me for this Jubilee edition.
Yes, it's a great pleasure to have you with us. So I think it's really nice to have women from all over the world, and I think Indonesia is a huge and big country. So how did you start your career in software testing in Indonesia?
Okay, so actually, it was actually by chance. I started my professional career as a software tester. So I started as a .NET developer first when I was in the US. And then my college friend, who was working as a QA engineer, she invited me to do an interview for this QA position at her company that she worked at. So I took the chance to interview. And at that time, I had a very limited knowledge about what is software testing at that time. That was back in 2012. Yeah, so it was very like, what is this? Like, okay, QA, sure. But because the opportunity was better at that time, I was thinking, oh, it's a full-time job. I probably gonna be sponsored for my H-1B visa and some other perks that motivated me to give it a chance to apply. So then that was actually where I started. I jumped into the QA world. Where fast forward 10 years now, I moved back to Indonesia in 2014. Well, I'm still in software testing industry and very grateful that I took the chance to take the interview back in 2012. And yeah, because of that, where I started my QA journey as a professional.
Very
Yeah.
nice. That's very interesting. And so you moved from US to Indonesia and started your business over there, right?
Yes. When I moved back to Indonesia back in 2014, I was quite nervous actually because I didn't know how the layout of software testing in Indonesia. So I thought that I wouldn't be able to get a job as a software tester. So that's why I was still working actually at the company that I was working in the US. And then I was introduced to some other consulting company. So that's where I started my journey in Indonesia. And then when I was working in one of the quite huge actually consulting company, it was McKinsey. And then where I had an idea. I was like, oh, I never meet any QA here. Where are they? What are they doing? So that's where I started actually a community of QA. So
I see. That is ISQA or
yeah,
is the ISQA? Okay.
yeah, that's the ISQA where I started this community to have the at first just kind of to meet other people on the same professional background as me, but then now it becomes such a huge community, one and only. Now we have a lot of branches in Indonesia.
You have more than 7,000 members in ISQA now, right? So you are one of the leading persons, the organizer of this group, and I think that shows that there were a few testers around, right?
Yes. I thought it was very a small group of people, but as we grow, there are a lot of testers now. And then now we have chapters in Yogyakarta, Bali, and then in Bandung. Those are the favorite spots for tech. So
Wow.
now we have So now we have about 7,000 people and growing each day. Yeah.
And Indonesia is a huge country, so I think you have a huge growth potential as well on that, right? But
Yes.
on your steps there in your careers, did you see any problems, any differences because you were a woman?
So actually, I would say that I need to put about twice or even thrice more effort to do what male engineers do. And I didn't realize that first, that there's such a huge gap between male and female engineers when I took my first class in computer science. So there are a few of us who were female, and all my teachers were actually male at that time. So, but then when I started my career in the IT world, I started to understand there's a gap there. Um, I was thinking maybe it's not intentional. Like sometimes maybe it's easier for males to bond together to start talking about their hobbies, for example. But when female and male talk, and maybe the female just raises the voice a little bit, you know, maybe our counterpart just start thinking like, oh, maybe is she mad, or is she disagreeing, or is she okay, or is she being unreasonable? So it's those kind of things that kind of like the communication, it has to be clear. Because when we discuss work, sometimes we cannot avoid like people to disagree with our opinions, or and so, but being a female with certain pitch tone, we have that kind of pitch tone, maybe that it can be more difficult for us female to send the message across
Mm.
without having the male counterpart blocking off the message directly, because
And
oh
do you see a
yeah.
difference then in Indonesia and in US, because you started the career in US and then you moved to Indonesia? Do you see a difference in there?
No, it's the same. I think it's the same. It's just the same. Yeah. So, but then in Indonesia, I would say that just that's just one of the example. There's many of them, but we also have the culture of patriarchy culture. So then that's probably another topic that is kind of really like a long conversation to discuss. But how to communicate is like one of the key that not only at work but our day to day that we have to discuss some things. So yeah, um, maybe here in Asian countries we have this more like patriarchy culture, so it's a little bit more struggling at that point. But yeah, so that's why I said like put twice or thrice work to get it there.
But you nevertheless managed to be one of the leading persons in the field. So when you look back, what was a help for you to reach where you are now?
um so I would say that I went through all the QA engineers roles. I started as QA engineer. And then I got promoted to as a lead, and then head of QA, and then my last position was principal QA engineers. But before I started my own consulting company. But then let's say I would start with some of the maybe negative examples, so we can end it with positive notes. A couple of maybe negative experience that I have encountered is that all my work has been challenged quite more often by male counterparts. Sometimes it makes me second guess myself, like, is my approach wrong? Am I not experienced enough for this job? Or like, those kind of doubts started to happen. And then without realizing it, I started to second guess everything, because, okay, all those things are being challenged. So, okay, am I not good enough for this? And then, so I was started to think, okay, there's so many other people that is more qualified probably than me. So that's my first thing. And second thing is kind of like, um, some of my work has been discredited by a lot more of my male counterparts actually. So that's a lot of struggles there. So claim it as their own. So that already I went through that already. So thought that many female will just be quiet and not going to make a fuss when the work is being discredited or taken by them. So I guess that's related to the maybe the society where um, males are the leader and then female is the follower. So growing up in this patriarchal society, you are being taught, yeah, you're being taught to do that. You're being taught to obey what male is doing. So if you are disagreeing to something, well, you have to agree. So that's kind of like the struggles being a female in the tech industry, especially in in Asian countries.
And
But
what would you recommend?
yeah.
What would you recommend ladies who are in that? Because do you see a change happening there, or what would you say um, a person who is seeing that problems what she should do?
So yeah. So in the positive notes or from those negative experience that I have encountered, um, that's why I put QA like forward, like at least at the same amount of pay. When I was still working as in like in private companies, I tried to push that forward by having like ISQA, like having this monthly meetup, all creating this community. Try to start it, introduce QA to university to make sure that QA is not only a chapter in a book, but it's actually a class of its own. So starting to kind of like make that the thought that QA is not the second class citizen here. We are equal in the development world. So having that also, the last thing that I put on was working with getting this ISTQB certification. That's the last thing that to say that hey, we do have international standards that can certify yourself, so then you can actually put above all of that. So then
Hmm.
yeah, so to say that there's a shift, there is a shift. I could say there is a shift already. There's some of the great male leaders that I've encountered. They're very open-minded, that they understand there's the gender equality here. So they start making a shift in their workplace where they let's say QA engineer salary is equal to developer salary, because more often than we realize that even salary wise, it's used QA is already low than the developer salary, but being
But you see,
female
is there
it's
a difference
lower.
also between? Is there a difference between women and men as well in salary, or
Yes,
is that in
yes,
Indonesia getting okay? So you have
yeah,
a difference in QA and development, and another difference
yeah.
in women and men. I see.
Yeah, so it's how you call it, like double kill. But then I try to kind of like put that at least first I need to change the mindset that first QA is equal. So then at least that part we can change. But the society, it's difficult. It's gonna be difficult to change society, right? It's not just like one person's job to do that. It has to
Hmm.
be everybody's job. But then at least for the leaders in tech leaders, they started to understand that QA is very important in their so then there shouldn't be any inequality even in the salary between QA and developers. So yeah.
And do you see Indonesia on a good way there? That men and women are getting similar from the salaries, that QA and developers are getting similar from the salaries?
Yes, yes, I see there's a movement there. Now most of them are equal. Yeah,
Okay,
not
that's
all,
I think very good
but
news, isn't
it's
it?
yeah, it is very good news. I'm very happy that we can upskills the QA team, and when then and make sure that they do have also standardized international certifications that is there. So then it's the same, right? Like developers also have certification, or AWS, those kind of certification that is internationally well known. So QA
Mm.
also has the same. So there's no more reason to put the salary inequality salary there.
Yeah, and so the certification is helping, in fact, to get more equality then, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
I think that's very good news. So when you see we have now surely a lot of young women listening to our talks here, what would you recommend them when you think back over your career as one of the leaders in testing now, as one of the very big personal persons in Indonesia in the field of QA? What would you recommend them? What could they do to have a great career in testing?
So first of all, we need to put the mindset as that QA is fun. Is Usually they think that programming is it's what is the uh, kind of like when you graduate from school, you go for programming after you take, like, let's say you're IT you take computer science or computer IT as your major. But QA is part of the development process. It's a fun, it's not monotonous job. It involves a lot of actually. You start thinking analytically, and then there's a problem solving there. So don't be afraid to jump to testing sector. Um, the thing that just need to remember that you need to stay curious, always challenge yourself, being curious, because QA usually they will have this why is that, why this bug happened, where is that coming from, those kind of thing. So engineering is not all about it's not all about math also. It's not just about how we solve math problem. Sometimes people get afraid because, oh, it's gonna be all math or all physics or those kind of thing. It is actually under STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. But there's this another part of path of engineers that is very important as well, which is analytical thinking and problem solving. So yeah, don't be afraid for getting into engineering world. It's fun. It's something that when you can solve the problem, there's gonna be the satisfying feeling of, okay, I solved the problem. But there's also, if let's say you're blocked into something, you try something and then you're blocked, don't worry, there's a lot of community out there that will help you to get started, to jumpstart your career in testing. We have a lot of people actually in our community that they maybe previous they were a nurse, they were working at the police officer, maybe they were working in several different sectors. They were not engineers at all, but they were able to do QA. So it's not something to be afraid of, something that to be embraced. So yeah, so I would say that yeah, just keep the curiosity going, keep asking questions,
Mm.
and then if there's a problem, join any community nearby you. There's gonna be some community out there.
Absolutely. And ISQA in Indonesia is surely the best. But when you look back, was it very helpful to be in US? So in your career, or would you recommend women who are interested to go into a testing career to stay in Indonesia? What would be your recommendation on this way?
um, Actually, I when I started in the US, this ISCA actually, because I used to go to meetups. We call it meetups back in the US. There's meetups.com, which is where I need to find which community that I wanna go to. So my friend also is the one who's like, hey, let's go to there's this QA community going on, that they're gonna have this. It was actually performance testing. How do you do performance testing? So I was curious about that because for me, I've been doing more towards manual and then slightly towards API testing, and then I was curious about performance testing. So I went to the community. So then I started, oh, this is nice. I keep on coming on their weekly meetups. And then so I enjoyed, I gained a lot of insights from them for sure. That was back in when I worked in Denver actually. So when I came back to Indonesia, because I was so used to kind of like join this community events. So when I looked around, I was like, okay, is there any QA community here in Indonesia or even in Jakarta? I couldn't find any. I saw there's a Python community, JavaScript community. So I was like, huh, why there's no QA community? That's weird. So that's where I started ISQA actually in meetups. So
Well,
yeah.
and the success is there when you have 7,000 members in only 6 years. I think that's a huge success all over Indonesia. So definitely big congratulations on that.
Thank you. That's a lot of efforts with others as well because it's everyone volunteering to do that as well. It's just I cannot do it by myself. Everyone also
So when you
volunteered
look
to
at
do
ISCA,
that.
do you have mostly women or do you have more men in there?
Actually, when I started, I have these old pictures. I would say majority are males in the pictures, and then now I could see the shift. Now I wouldn't say it's already equal, male and female, but for sure there's each year there's a shift. There's more female coming into IT industry, especially QA. So I am very happy about that. We have a lot of good female leaders for QA here in Indonesia.
Yeah, and I think that's a great closing for our session, Reifa. It has been a pleasure to have you here with us. I think you gave great insights for women in testing, and yeah, I think it should be a push for women to go into this career because testing is a great thing, QA is a great thing, and I think you are a perfect example why you should go that way, and that there is a great success also connected in testing, and to be the leader in testing. Reifa, many thanks for being our guest here today, and I'm looking forward to see you in Jakarta next year. So yeah, we are going on with our Jubilee edition here in Marrakesh.
All right, thank you so much for